We digress. Alex, we
Yes.
do.
Yeah,
Well,
I was
we'll
gonna say we're gonna switch footballs here and across the pond. John, the Premier League mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth was off last week. How's
still
Liverpool?
tech, still
I was gonna say
technically off, by the way,
still
which
off.
is
Yes, so that they are still in a period of national mourning. When they do decide to resume play, what's going to get Liverpool FC out of their malaise?
oh my god. It's Liverpool has been rough to watch this season. For anyone who hasn't watched, they're somehow still near, well, they're within striking distance of the title just because of how Manchester City has really struggled out of the gate as well to a degree, not quite as much as Liverpool. And Arsenal's really taken the league by storm, or by surprise, I should say, as the team taking advantage of the poor form. But Liverpool has just been absolutely, I mean, brutal. Yes, there's a bit of an injury crisis, and that has to be acknowledged. But for no reason at all, Jurgen Klopp has completely changed the tactics that have really gotten Liverpool to the dance. I mean, Liverpool was an intense gang pressing 4-3-3 with, I mean, two of the best overlapping fullbacks in football, and Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson. And their three-man midfield really led this pressing scheme because they played compact. They were high energy. In terms of fitness levels, they were one of the, well, that's obviously what they call it in soccer. They were one of the basically the most well conditioned units in the entire world. And Jurgen Klopp has really, over his time at Liverpool, how teams have dealt with this is they've really adopted a low block, which basically, Alex, they park the bus. And so what Jurgen Klopp has decided to do to try to beat that is switch to what appears to be a 4-2-4. He has essentially two players in the midfield run forward next to his striker. This completely renders his two wide attackers, Mohamed Salah and Luis Diaz, completely useless because now they have to tug the touch lines and basically supply crosses, which they're goal scorers. They don't play make, which I don't really understand. And by doing that, it also then leaves no room for your fullbacks, who, as I said, they're two of the best overlapping fullbacks in the game because they have the ability to cross and create from out wide. They now have to pull in, and essentially everyone, because of this, ends up in something that's reminiscent of Arsenal a few seasons ago and what was called the U of Death, where they essentially had nobody in the box and just possessed the ball really above low blocks. Didn't really, they had a lot of possession, but they didn't really create enough. And Liverpool's kind of stuck in this form. And Jurgen Klopp has even gone as far as to say that they need to reinvent themselves. I mean, personally, I think they just need to go back to what they did and get Mohamed Salah and Luis Diaz a little bit closer to goal, interplaying with their new signing, Darwin Nunez.
And
And
why do you think they did change up their form this year?
like I was saying, the biggest thing that Liverpool's faced as they progressed is teams in the low block. So teams like to basically sit back. They even sit back. Sometimes it feels like all 10 outfield players as close to the goal as possible, and essentially try to suffocate space from Liverpool's attacking third of the field. And like I said, Jurgen Klopp, his way around that is he's tried to just basically put as many attackers on the field as possible. It's resulted in this kind of 4-2-4 formation, which has really unbalanced the side. And I mean, it's not enjoyable to watch either. And that is the biggest problem. And I mean, I kind of, if he keeps managing this way, I mean, I could see FSG putting a countdown on them. I'd like to think Klopp's earned enough respect, but Alex, this is where I was going to refer to you, my man. You as our resident Boston fan. I mean, FSG and manager patience or coach patience. Does that really sound like something that goes hand in hand?
So it's really a mixed bag when we look at the Red Sox experience, and I wouldn't be able to draw parallels between a manager's responsibilities in baseball versus soccer. And
So one thing I will say, Alex, about that is in soccer, there is far more tactical requirement on the manager. So like the manager basically decides how the team's going to set up, how they're going to defend, how they're going to attack. So that aspect of it, the tactical aspect that a baseball manager would have, basically, or excuse me, would not have, doesn't apply. But what does apply is the man management.
right, yeah, how the team approaches their manager. And
Exactly.
so before we dive into this discussion, I'll ask you really quickly: do you think it's because there was some, uh, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? There was some uncertainty as to who Liverpool was going to bring back, whether they were going to bring back Mo Salah, this institution on the team, and some of the other guys that he had played with. Do you think it's a matter of the team hasn't, FSG hasn't given Liverpool the right resources to make this form work, or is it that this just doesn't work, or excuse me, Klopp isn't able to coach this kind of form to find the solutions to some of the problems that you laid out?
It's a bit of a combination of both. So Liverpool doesn't have the personnel to pull off a 4-2-4. And at the same time, although FSG did dive into the transfer market, they actually purchased Darwin Nunez, who's, I believe, the largest, he's the most expensive signing in the history of Liverpool. New striker. He actually got a red card in his second game, which is why we haven't seen too much of him. But they also bought Calvin Ramsey, who's a young right back to basically back up Trent Alexander-Arnold. And they brought in Arthur Mello as well, who's a midfielder on loan. Like these moves, they're solid moves, but to your point, they're lacking depth. And Liverpool entered this season really with a lot of bodies on the roster, but a number of these players were either over 30 or had known injury issues. Players like Jordan Henderson, James Milner, Thiago Alcantara, Naby Keita, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Also, if you're counting, those are all midfielders. So you can tell where all the injury problems are really taking place. But they really went into the season with all these guys with the assumption that if we can get, say, 20 games out of all of them, that's enough to make it through this season. And it really isn't, because these guys are just breaking down left and right. And like I was saying, Father Time is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a bit of a combination of both. Like Jurgen Klopp has really switched to this offensive tactic to break down these low blocks with really, I mean, like I was saying, like there's no reason for it because it's not like Liverpool hasn't been successful. And in addition to that, if he was going to switch formations, he's completely unequipped because to your point about like the flux in the team, Sadio Mane was sold this offseason and Darwin Nunez was essentially brought in to be his replacement, more or less. And that's what I mean. Like they more or less handled the flux. The issue is that this switch is causing a real imbalance in the team. And what's making it worse is the fact that they have so many midfielders on the injury list. But Thiago Alcantara actually played today as we record against Ajax, and Liverpool thankfully won that game in the Champions League. Also, kind of like, why is Champions League going on, but not English Premier League? But that's a whole nother argument.